Well, voters in South Carolina will head to the polls tomorrow in the state's Democratic primary. A Monmouth University poll shows Joe Biden leading the Palmetto State. The former vice president has 36% support, with Senator Bernie Sanders a distant 20 points behind. And right on the heels of the South Carolina primaries, Super Tuesday, 14 states will hold primaries with more than 1,300 delegates up for grabs. CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe reports from South Carolina.
This nation isn't looking for a revolution. It's looking for results.
Former Vice President Joe Biden is poised to win his first contest of the 2020 campaign. As he travels through South Carolina, he's touting a familiar talking point: his close work with former President Obama, vowing to build on the Affordable Care Act.
I'm not running to destroy Barack Obama's signature legislative achievement.
But his lead here isn't stopping opponents from raising concerns about whether he has what it takes to go the distance.
Joe Biden is a good friend of mine. I've known Joe for many years. He is a decent guy. But I don't believe that Joe can beat Trump when people learn that he voted for the war in Iraq.
As candidates prepare for Super Tuesday next week, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg believes he can emerge as the best alternative to Bernie Sanders.
We've got the most votes and the most delegates of any candidate besides Senator Sanders. I'm the only one who's beaten him anywhere.
On the trail, Democratic contenders are speaking out more frequently about the coronavirus. They fault President Trump for not doing more to prepare the country.
He's not leading, he's reacting much too late, and his incompetence really does put us all at risk.
I believe this has been a dangerously incompetent response to a global pandemic. And this is exactly my point about him. He's actually incompetent.
In a statement, Sanders said that the administration must stop releasing misleading, unscientific, and false information about whether the virus can be controlled. And Senator Elizabeth Warren introduced a bill that would divert all money budgeted to build a U.S.-Mexico border wall to instead fight the virus.
I want to bring in CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns. She's in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So, Caitlin, you know, Joe Biden he's going to be right there where you are later today. Bernie Sanders was there in Spartanburg last night. Biden's ahead of the polls. He's expected to win. How much would a win mean for him in this state?
Oh, it's absolutely critical for his campaign that Joe Biden wins here on Saturday, and they're trying to have a decisive win to be able to propel him into those Super Tuesday contests. A lot of these candidates are already preparing for that big day where a third of the delegates will be up for grabs across 14 states across the country. Joe Biden has always relied on his strength in South Carolina to be able to revive his campaign. We've been hearing his campaign use the hashtag the Biden bounce back after losses in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. They've been looking to South Carolina as a way to boost him into those Super Tuesday contests. Remember, he hasn't won a state yet. He has strong support here among African-American voters who make up about 60% of the electorate here, so that's critical. And South Carolina has been seen as kind of a gateway to those Super Tuesday contests. So a win here will be big. You have other candidates, however, trying to cut into the margins, trying to pick off a few delegates, even as Biden appears in the best position to win. If someone like Bernie Sanders can help narrow the gap a bit and expand his own support among African-American voters, that would be a boost for him as well. So Biden heavily relying on South Carolina. He's been camped out in this state, going all across the state, while many of his rivals try to navigate the Super Tuesday contest by going to other states and returning back. Biden is camped out here and needs a win on Saturday.
And you've got some establishment Democrats who are kind of nervous because Bernie Sanders has won the primary in Nevada, New Hampshire. You know, what is his campaign saying about his chances ahead? How do they feel?
That's right. For the Biden campaign, South Carolina is a way for them to blunt the momentum coming from Bernie Sanders. But Bernie Sanders has already been invested heavily in the Super Tuesday states. He's been able to raise a lot of money. He's been campaigning pretty aggressively here in South Carolina, had a variety of different events. We were at one here in Spartanburg for him last night when he talked about general electability. He talked about his own campaign being a movement that is difficult to stop in in his view, and that's something that Democrats are seeing as he's been able to have decisive wins in Nevada, in New Hampshire. He's been able to lead in the delegate count, which is the most important count. That's how you get the nomination. And he's heading into states that look pretty favorable to him. California is a good example of that. So right here in South Carolina, they feel that if they can cut into the margins, make this a closer race with Joe Biden, and be able to show a broadened base of support heading into those big contests next week, that certainly will continue the momentum for them. But for most Democrats, especially Joe Biden, South Carolina is going to be ground zero for trying to stop Bernie Sanders.
You know, a super PAC supporting Elizabeth Warren is giving her $12 million for ads. This is over half a dozen states. Warren has really been very vocal about speaking out against super PACs. What does this mean that she's getting and willing to accept this support?
That's right. Elizabeth Warren has made an entire campaign focused on grassroots donations. She has talked a lot about how she doesn't do these big fundraisers. She does selfie lines instead, and she has dismissed PACs until now. She has said that since all Democrats have them, there is no way to kind of disarm at this point. But it does raise questions, you know, among some voters about her campaign moving forward, given that this is a change in strategy. Her campaign also said just today that they want this PAC to release its donors, release the names of its donors before Super Tuesday. But, you know, she has little control over that, so it's really up to them. But it comes at a critical time for her campaign. Her campaign needs money. She had a successful fundraising effort after the Las Vegas debate, after a good debate performance last week, but she still needs money to move forward. Her campaign is really focused on these Super Tuesday contests. She is in South Carolina today, but she is really focused on Super Tuesday. Her home state of Massachusetts votes Tuesday as well, and it's not actually clear if she's able to win her home state. So a long road ahead, but this kind of investment from an outside PAC, however disagreeable it is with her original campaign pitch, could help her in places like California and Texas, where it costs a lot of money to get on air.
It certainly does. I want to ask you about the president who tweeted that the South Carolina primary earlier, calling Democratic presidential candidate Tom Steyer a joke, laughed at by everyone, a total incompetent, his words. The president's holding a rally in South Carolina tonight. What do you expect him to say?
That's right. This is part of a counter-programming effort we've seen from him, kind of following these Democrats around to the early states. It's notable, though, in South Carolina, they're not having a Republican primary because they decided early on that they're all in for Donald Trump, the incumbent, and they felt no need to actually host a primary here. So that's important. It's also important to note that it's an open primary, so Republicans can participate in the Democratic primary if they want to. They can vote. So there are concerns about Republicans entering into this race or voting in this primary as an effort to maybe prop up Bernie Sanders. So we'll see if that occurs. I'll be listening to watch if the president kind of encourages any of that and who among his rivals he talks most about here in South Carolina.
All right, a lot to watch. We look forward. We're going to be talking to you a lot, I have a feeling, tomorrow all day as you'll be out there in South Carolina. Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you very much for joining us.